Yeah, we are live. We are live. Oh no, my little my thing's not working. Just a second. I usually have like a little hold on. Wait for it. There we go. There they are. All right. Welcome.
All you need is the pants. Oh, okay. I see the.
Yeah, there's like a whole like thing. Welcome to the Slop.Computer. Thank you for joining me. We're live. I had to get that extra thing going, so I have this cool like
Wait, do I get them too? No.
I don't think so. Yeah. I will soon. I will add that in soon. I think it should, like, everybody should have an overlay where they get claws. I think
love it.
That should just be part of it. Yes. Okay, welcome, Annika. I think I met you a long time ago doing Gitcoin DAO stuff. Were we in the Gitcoin DAO together, sort of?
You know what? I have actually like a pretty distinct memory of meeting you because you always made such an impression on me. I think I first met you, in Gitcoin DAO calls back in like 2021, and you were the guy with a bow tie dancing, of course, as always. No bow tie today, but still dancing.
No bow tie. No.
And then I remember I finally met you in person at ETH Denver 2022. We were in that food hall up in Boulder, and we just had like the greatest conversation. And
you were pregnant, I think, right? I had a couple beers, but you were pregnant. Yeah.
It was like, you're just coming out of COVID. I was pregnant. Like, it was wild times.
Yeah. I was up till 1:30 a.m. feeding a baby last night, so my
because
processing power might be slow.
Your
fourth boy. Yes. Yes.
Congratulations. Amazing.
Yes. It's not getting a lot of sleep right now. It's fun though. It's good. I want to do it again, but I don't think we'll be able to. Okay.
That's a big number.
Yes, it would be. Okay, let's talk about so there's the DAO stuff, and you're kind of like famously out of crypto a little bit. I think you kind of pivoted from crypto to AI on your Twitter.
I wouldn't say
Is that right?
famously nor fully out of crypto, but we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But yes, I'm spending a lot more of my time on AI these days. Okay.
Let's get into the AI stuff. I feel like that's the kind of the meat of what we're here for. Let's see. Can you still see yourself? Did I move you too far off?
No, I'm good. I can see myself. Yep.
Okay, great. And then here you are on Twitter. But I think Northbound is what I wanted to bring up first. So let's like maybe start from the product and work backwards to the process. But tell us about Northbound. What are you doing with this?
We are helping small to mid-sized businesses get up and running with AI. And I'll tell you the whole backstory in a minute. But in short, primarily professional services businesses, anywhere from like 2 to 50 people. Typically they've got maybe a little bit of experience in AI. They're using ChatGPT or they're using Claude pretty lightly. And we just help come in and both sort of teach them. That's kind of the first pillar of the business. We've done, Claude trainings for post-Series C startups, things like that. We've done, coming in and doing like one-on-one coaching with leaders. So teaching is sort of one side of the business, and then the other side is building. So helping people build out, their whole system for their company, and whatever that looks like, whether it's kind of a second brain. I know you and I talked a little bit about second brains before we came live, or whether it's, helping automate a specific workflow in a more reliable way. So that's us. There's just 2 of us. We do all the work for every client, and we're super small. And it felt like kind of a very natural sort of next step following what I've been, spending time tinkering on with AI for the last year or so.
This like concept, I've talked about this on a lot of episodes so far of like, there's all of these slop operators, us that are like early adopters that are like, we haven't looked at the code for 6 months or a year. We are just building things and we're building quickly. We have a ton of power right now because we can just like make software. Like my Calendly got shut down the other day, and I just made another Calendly.
Yeah.
And then like last night I was like, you know what? I want that, but I wanted a different design for a different thing. I want to be able to give someone a different link, and I wanted to like have the vibe of like Slop.Computer instead of my calendar. It was like 2 prompts, and then I got it. So it's like, not only can you like you can replace the SaaS software that you're using today, but then it becomes like this like unique thing, and in unique thing else, it's just like 1 prompt away, and you can iterate on the software. So anyways, kind of a deep tangent into we have a lot of power to build things, but there's a lot of folks out there that are running businesses that have revenue that could use AI, but they're not deep in the weeds like we are. And I've had this conversation with so many people of like, you should go to like roofers and plumbers and HVAC guys and just like help them AIify. And that's where you'll have the most impact. But it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing. But I'm guessing a lot of your clients are more like digitized than a lot of the brick and mortar folks.
We've talked about those brick and mortar businesses and sort of that as a potential niche, but we haven't gone after it yet. Really exactly what you're saying. Yeah, professional services. So, you know, lawyers, venture funds, investors, real estate, people that are already living their 9 to 5 pretty much online, probably have like a decent digital quotient, but just like haven't been, you know, the early adopters like you and I have, and just helping them start to navigate this.
And so what, I mean, you said that they're probably using ChatGPT already. I feel like I put my wife like squarely in this category of uses ChatGPT, but does not know what agentic commerce is, or does not, you know, mess around with entities inside of a Slack channel or something like that. What does it look like? Like, most of these businesses are already digitized. They're already online. They're asking ChatGPT questions, so they like know enough to know. There's like not too much to go from that point. Like once you're there, it feels like that next step is probably pretty easy and pretty natural. Is that true, or do you find it's like you're still pulling teeth to get them?
It's still pulling teeth because I think ChatGPT has effectively become like new Google for a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
And they're starting to figure out what types of questions they can ask it, and you know they've started maybe saving context across chats, which is great. So the ChatGPT is at least getting that, but they generally are not, you know, familiar with sort of the concept of, you know, like agentic coding and how even a very sort of lightweight version of that could help them, you know, run the same queries they're running in ChatGPT, but run them much more effectively and with better output. And so it's often kind of just like that first step. And, you know, Claude Cowork has done a lot of heavy lifting and starting to handhold people sort of to like, you know, that first step. But yeah, I find there's sort of like a mental barrier for a lot of people going from just like the ChatGPT or the Claude.ai simple web interface into, you know, a version that reaches into your files and can just do more.
Neat. Very cool.
Yeah, and it's like my husband is actually, sounds like your wife. He's a great example of this, where he's an architect.
He's an normie. Yeah.
He uses ChatGPT. And his unhinged behavior is he uses ChatGPT not even logged in. So it's just like every time go to chatgpt.com and nothing's saving across chats. I'm like, you got to get a login, get this context kind of piling on itself. But you know, people are gonna people, and yeah, a lot of it is just going on the journey with them, meeting them where they are, and ultimately figuring out what their business priorities are. Right? I think a lot of people start to go to like, where is the natural place for AI to come into my business, and what can I easily automate, even if it's not like a super high value workflow. And yeah, I've had a lot of conversations where people are starting where kind of they think they should be. Then I actually learn more about their business. And I'm like, oh, this actually isn't that big of a priority for you. Let's start to chip away at the ones that are actually going to move the needle, even if they're going to be a little bit more complex of builds, because that's what you're actually going to get excited about and use and come back to every day.
And okay, so are these things, I'm imagining like electronic assistant, like an electronic assistant seems like the manage things, be a chat that I can talk with of like, when is that meeting this afternoon? Is that like, to me, that's instinctually where a lot of this would go, but maybe not. Where is the like big high leverage stuff when you get in there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like a step one that is literally just teaching people about like connectors, like connect your Claude or your Codex to Gmail, to Granola, to all of the things that it needs to have the context so that you can use it more effectively. That's like V1. V2 would be like building more intentionally, like a second brain, sort of like, you know, data store, knowledge base, whatever that looks like, whether it's in Obsidian or Notion or what have you. And I think those are kind of like, yeah, the initial starting points. But the interface typically, based on people I'm working with who are already at least dabbling in Claude or ChatGPT, tends to kind of stay in just like the basic, you know, existing chat apps that are there. We've also worked with a handful of clients to implement more like Hermes style bots that are, you know, wired into Signal or Telegram, and, you know, run in a bit of a different way. But yeah, I would say that like that's kind of at the surface what it starts to look like typically.
So if I'm imagining it right, it's sort of like connectors. Just get logged into ChatGPT and start connecting it to things. And then like the third step is like the agentic stuff, but in the middle it's just like this second brain idea, and having like tons of MD files or an Obsidian or something like that. And that's probably where like the biggest impact you can have with someone is even explaining context and keeping your context clean. And like MD files, I feel like, you know, it was a while ago for me now, but the moment that I realized that like every session we had like came up, we had done work, we had done like some mental work, and we could write that to a file, and then that work could be shortcutted next time in that file. And I feel like that's the aha moment for a lot of people, where like when they understand the context and it's completely clean every time with maybe a little bit of memory, and then you start building up this like giant corpus of MD files. And like I have all these folders all over my computer that represent separate tasks. I get into that folder and it's just full of MD files, and I'm like talking to it to go load these MD files based on the date or whatever. Like, what's the stuff I touched most recently and what's that output? I feel like that was a big jump for me, and I'm assuming that's like the biggest jump for your clients.
Yeah, I think so. And one sort of like aha moment that I see continually is after people have, you know, connected their, you know, all of their things, and then they've, you know, built out some version of like a second brain. I think one aha moment is having your Claude or your Codex, like pointing it at a folder and asking it to write an email on a specific topic. And when it does a job that is like 5 to 10x better than you would have done writing it from memory, that's the moment where it's like, whoa, like I could have spent all of this time agonizing over what to write in this email. Because let's be honest, a lot of people still live in email. You and I probably don't so much, but a lot of people do still live in email. And if they see that the AI can not just, you know, write effectively, but can have this context that is pertinent to the task at hand and just compose something that is better than they ever would have, is just like, wow, just wild.
I don't live in email, but I do spend a lot of time agonizing over tasks I don't want to do, and I always like kind of push them off. And then when I finally do them, they were like a 10-minute thing that I should have just done 2 days ago.
Yep.
So I think that like, yeah, those and when I spoke to a lot of people before about finding these brick and mortar people, I talked about like the way you like. They don't give a shit about AI. Like they don't care. Like you have to basically, it was just like crypto like 8 years ago. The way you win them over is you do a magic trick for them.
Exactly.
And once they see the magic trick, they go, oh, and then they're like, all right, teach me this magic. Yeah. Do you have like a, maybe it's, you know, secret info, but do you have like a magic trick you like to do to win folks over when in the initial call?
Not like a specific one off the cuff that I'm using repeatedly, but I think, you know, that aha moment of like the email thing is almost like a version of that magic trick that I would talk about. But I think the biggest thing is just, you know, that magic trick and like what the most powerful magic trick is going to be is going to look different for every person depending on their business and their priorities. And so a lot of what we've been doing, honestly, is just getting the community together here in Vancouver in person and like let's get 8 people to demo something they've built in the past month. And then the magic trick that you see sitting in that audience is probably going to be very different from the magic trick that was the aha moment for me. And so, yeah, you know, one of our sort of strategies early on has been, hosting these events. That first event that we ran, we had, you know,
it's a room full of people.
Yeah. So for this one, actually, I'd been to a Claude event locally a month prior. It was very developer focused, very technical in its language. It was great, but it was just not quite the audience that I sort of had a vision for. So we ran this like Claude for everyone event. We had 750 people sign up for 100 seats. So we were like, okay, that's pretty good signal. And yeah, we did just that. We had, you know, all sorts of demos of, you know, people and how they're using it. We've since honed in our focus in these events. We're doing like Claude for GTM or Claude for kind of a specific segment to make it a little bit more tailored. But yeah, I think, you know, in these early days, like these tools are still so, what's the word? I don't know. Malleable, so flexible. Everyone uses them completely differently. It's not like a SaaS tool where it's very, very kind of like tailored and it's clear what the path is. And so seeing people coming out, seeing people hearing about how they're using it, getting inspiration, and just like not doing this quietly in our basements ourselves is just such an unlock, and people really see value in that.
You said 750 for 100 seats. Did you actually have to like filter through and have a decision of who gets in, or is it basically like actually only 100 people showed up?
Oh, you did. We built a whole AI system to do it. So we had, we added some friction at the beginning, which is that they had to answer a few questions about, you know, their Claude usage, their AI usage on Luma. Then we built sort of a whole scoring system that like appended their LinkedIn, qualified them as a lead for us as a business. So we've got a pretty good kind of like repeatable Claude-based motion for these events that, reduces the human work required.
This process though, this is a common thing when I'm interviewing sloperators, is their brain is like made to AI the shit out of things. It reminds me of like Jesse from Breaking Bad when he's like, we're gonna science the shit out of this or something. Folks on Slop.Computer, when I talk to them, they're really good at AIing the shit out of things and knowing that like, oh, like we can have these 750 signups, we can build a workflow, we can have an agent like score everything, then we can sort the scores and maybe even have a follow-up question, and like there's so many neat things you can do that like most people just don't know they can do. And that's probably a lot of what this is just like showing people the magic trick, but also showing them the basics, and like here's 3 or 4 ways I use AI every day that saves me a ton of time that maybe you weren't thinking about. And it's not like, I mean, maybe it's a magic trick just because it saves them so much time, but some of it's just like the simple, obvious stuff. It was an obvious thing and they still didn't know they could do it in a way.
That's it. And I think exactly what you described is how my brain works. And so I feel like for me, post Opus 4.5, I just had this unlock where I was like, I have to be spending all of my time doing this and like automating all of the things and figuring out how to help people automate all of the things. I left my most recent crypto role back in January and kind of initially intended to stay in crypto. I know we've talked a little bit about crypto and sort of our journey and whether my pivot out, but it didn't feel so much like a pivot out of crypto as a, oh my God, like I have to spend all of my time doing this. It just like I was just so called to AI and needed my time there. And so I'm still as bullish crypto as I was, 6 months ago, but I feel like both in terms of the opportunity at hand, as well as, as a non-technical sort of like strategy and ops person, I have to do this for the sake of my career. And I think I can also help people in so doing. So that's kind of, that's why I've shifted my focus so much in the past year.
There is this like nagging feeling of token maxing, of like, when you actually get something to work, it's like, oh, this is so good. I should be doing all of this all the time. And then I'm like out feeding a baby and kind of clicking away, making sure my prompts are running and stuff. But the thing that won you over, like, can you even remember that? Or is there?
I can, yes.
Yeah, hell yeah, let's go.
Look, I mean, of course, throughout the past, year, 2 years, I've been tinkering with, all.
But like November was the clutch moment. Like Opus 4.5 was like the turning point.
Yeah, it was actually a little bit post-November because I started hearing about Opus 4.5 in like November, December, but I remember very specifically it was over Christmas break that I looked at Opus 4.5, read about it, was like, I'll get to it at some point. Over Christmas break, I started seeing tweets of all of these other non-technical people saying, wow, I vibe coded this website. I built myself this daily brief thing. And it was these non-engineers like me who had built these like incredibly sophisticated looking software products. And I was like, I resolved to the first day back from Christmas break, sit down, finally download Claude Code, which I hadn't downloaded yet, which is crazy, and get to it. And that was really the moment for me. So yeah, I was tinkering before the new year, but really it wasn't until like post-Christmas that I got very serious about it.
And it's one other theme from Slop.Computer is that it's idea guy summer. Basically, like all of these folks that had these ideas that would traditionally have to hire a whole dev team to help them build out. You just can't do that for like a little idea. Like you have this little idea that will help you in your own workflow. Like very, very few people in the world pre November 2025 who didn't have developer experience could just like bring these things into reality. And now you can, and anybody can. And it's just a Claude Code subscription away and a few prompts, and you have yourself that custom piece of software. Software is so easy to make now. And it's crazy how, going back to the Calendly that I built, like the process of iteration, like once you build a piece of software, you replace the SaaS and then you can make changes to it. It's just so nice. It's so nice to have a piece of software that you control, that like a little thing goes wrong and you can go like prompt it and change it and make it better. And I don't know. I am now an idea guy. I don't write any code. I don't look at the code. I imagine the thing that I want to do the thing and I ask it for it and then I try it. And if it doesn't do it, I explain why it didn't do it until it does it. And then I use the thing and iterate on it. There's no developer anymore. I'm a builder at best. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's interesting, you know, I don't even necessarily consider myself like the idea girl or like an idea girl in sort of like the most classic sense. I have always really enjoyed being a teacher effectively, right? So I've really always enjoyed being at the forefront of technology and then helping translate that for people who maybe don't understand it or don't see its potential yet. And, you know, that extends, but, you know, when I worked in crypto, I ran a course called Stablecoins 101, where I taught people about stablecoins. And so for me, where I'm really excited and where I felt like I had to go full time and kind of like do this Northbound thing is I don't necessarily want to be the one always coming up with the initial idea, but I love executing on, iterating on the idea, teaching people how to themselves build out that idea. And that's why it was just kind of such a natural fit for both me and my curiosities in terms of just like frontier tech and my capabilities in terms of, you know, translating things and teaching things and bringing people along for my non-technical journey.
I love teaching also. I love learning and teaching, and I always say that my superpower is that I'm an idiot. Like being able to be dumb about a thing, and if I can learn it myself, then I can teach it to anyone.
Exactly.
Like it's that kind of, and when it's like magic for me, I know that it'll be magic for other people too. And so it's fun to like empower other folks with those magic tricks.
100%.
Okay, so Northbound is, you're looking for like small to medium businesses to reach out to you, and they just hit let's talk and book a call with you or something.
Exactly.
There's just two of you, is that right?
You
and a technical co-founder, is that right?
So it's me and my technical co-founder. He's a good friend, so we've been friends for 7 years. He I mean, you can pull up his handle if you want. It's MatthewHall_com if you're on X, but we've been friends for 7 years. You know, in the past year or so, we've just been talking a ton more about AI. HALL_com. Yeah, COM. He's not super on X, but he's there. And so he's been, you know, CTO of early stage startups. He's a founder who's had his own exits before himself. And we were just we've both been good friends and talking about AI for a while, and we're just really complementary in our skill sets. So, you know, he's the one actively doing most of kind of the more technical production grade product building for our clients. I'm doing more of, you know, sort of sales, building out our operating system, go-to-market side of the business. And so, we're just a 2-person team. You don't get anyone else beyond us. And it's fun. It's fun working with somebody that, you know, has been a friend and that I've wanted to work with for so long. And it just kind of came up very naturally in the last few months.
So you said that he's building things for them. I kind of assumed that this was more like, we teach you how to build your things, but sometimes there's some business that needs some product and he'll go like build that for them. Is that right?
Yeah, it has been more of the former so far. So we have been more heavy on the teach side, but there have been a few builds. Most of them are still in kind of like the early stages with clients of stuff that we are actively building out. But that's kind of the idea behind the business.
That's cool. It's a neat. And again, most of them are digitized. Like I'm still looking for this unlock for like how we get to brick and mortar companies. And I still think it's like you just run into them and have a beer with them. And it starts with like a human connection. And then you start like Zach Cole was talking about, his father-in-law runs like an HVAC company. And he just started like shadowing him at the HVAC company. And this guy's still like writing stuff down on paper. And so he did a few things like make a magic trick where it like goes out and I think it like looks through a bunch of prices of things and then sends an email with like the price list sorted. And that the guy was like, what? It was like something it would take a human all day to do. And it's a very human work, but you can just like do that magic trick for them. Yeah. So I do think there's like this big unlock for already digitized folks. And I think it's a much harder unlock for the brick and mortar still writing things on paper.
Agreed.
But I feel like there is going to be like a Google-like entity that like you, as a normie, when you needed to find something on the internet, like search, like if we go way back to search, you just didn't know about it. And then everybody would like no one knew about like Alta Vista or whatever. Like, but when Google came out and it was Google and Google was very good, like you would say like, have you Googled this yet? Right. Yeah. I feel like we're going to have like the Kleenex of open AI, and somebody is going to figure out how to make like the startup that helps brick and mortar folks, or maybe it's like a larger incumbent that does this, but they just get in and
It's going to be so easy that it's a no-brainer, and it's going to solve a problem for them without them even necessarily having to know that it's AI, right? It's like we always talk about in crypto, right? Like, business in the front, party in the back, like it runs on crypto rails. It's going to be that. It's going to be something that does a job for their business that is meaningful and moves the needle for their business. And it happens to be AI based, and they may know that, they may care about that, and they may not.
And the interface may be like just talking to someone, similar to how you deal with customers now. You get on a Zoom call with them and talk through their whole thing. It probably will be something like that, where they get on and talk to an entity about what they need and what their stuff is and where the high leverage is. And that entity is actually AI, and it's figuring out how to apply AI to them. And they get like, wow, they get like the full rundown, but it's all just talking to a machine, which is crazy.
It's going to be your Claude bot, Austin. That's
He's supposed to be in here, but I think he's having problems. I released a service yesterday or 2 days ago that's like a $1 security audit. And
oh yeah, I saw that. Very cool.
All of my AI is just capped out right now, just doing audits for people. So I'm my things are limited, and things are just like random things that I didn't even know were attached to different things are just like shutting off. And it's like, oh shit. Oh yeah. That needed that. Amazing. Okay. You want to talk about crypto a little bit? Like you said, you're not getting out of crypto. It's just like AI is more interesting right now.
Yeah, it's not even, I mean, I still find crypto extremely interesting, but as I said, I sort of feel this urgency around like, I just like AI is there for me as a non-technical person that I just have to get good at it. I have to automate all my workflows. I have to help other people automate their workflows. It just feels like the highest leverage place for me to be spending my time right now. And so I don't think crypto is going away. I still think, financial rails end up migrating more and more on chain. My timeline's a little bit less certain, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. When does the world really start to materially come on chain? I feel like I've been wrong on that a million times. So I'm not even going to try and call it. But I mean, and I think the intersection of crypto and AI is also super interesting and may end up being kind of like, crypto's killer use case, like micropayments and agentic payments. We can talk all about that. And so, yeah, I'm so glad there's amazing operators still spending a ton of time in crypto. I hope to get to a point where it feels inevitable that I must work on like the intersection of crypto and AI again. But after tinkering on it a little bit back in like January, February, as I was kind of making the decision of, do I go all AI or do I, keep a foot in crypto and spend time here? It wasn't there for me yet. It wasn't obvious enough. And I just really felt called to spend time on AI. So that's where I went.
And the places where you were in crypto, there was DAO stuff, but now you mentioned like agentic commerce and some other things there. Like there's really nothing to do in DAOs right now. Like the only people that are doing things in DAOs are like probably extracting value from treasuries, which is really sad.
It is. And I mean, crypto has always experimented on so many different vectors at once, right? Like the crypto industry writ large, right? And so it's like we're experimenting with new, monetary constructs. We're experimenting with new financial rails. We're experimenting with new like people constructs. And it's like we're trying to like build not even an airplane, but like whatever the next gen version of an airplane is, and like all of its different components, and fly it at the same time. And so like, DAOs are a really cool concept. And I think, there are elements of organizations that are likely to sort of like swing in that pendulum direction at some point. And it's probably like a pendulum that swings back and forth over time. But yeah, I mean, DAOs were a really fun experiment while we were all in them. But I think there were a lot of things about DAOs that were just like not sustainable in how they've been run in the last 5 or so years in crypto.
I mean, if we just, I mean, like ENS is really kind of like the hot, contentious DAO right now. But if you have a protocol, and that protocol has a set of smart contracts, and there's like a knob that needs to get turned, and it can't turn algorithmically, a DAO makes a lot of sense, because you can have 20 different people, and you need to get like 10 of the 20 people to agree on like where that knob should be turned to. And you probably need to provide a small amount of incentives of like whoever votes on where the knob needs to go gets like a percentage, or maybe like when the knob is turned, we look at how well the protocol did, and then you get like a small portion of that if it did well, or something like that. Like that makes a lot of sense. And then like if anybody dies in there, everything keeps working. And that just like doesn't work in the traditional world. Like businesses sort of work, but I feel like but then, okay, you've got this group of 20 people that can turn this knob to make this thing work, and maybe there's some small incentives, but then the incentives get super perverse when there's $200 million. And right. I think that's where what we basically saw with DAOs is it went way beyond the let's figure out how the right way to turn this knob, and let's provide the incentives to be aligned on making sure this knob is turned in the right way, to like, how do we get $200 million from this multi-sig into my multi-sig? And it seems like that's a lot of what, and it was like public goods and people like faking like they were public goods and grant farming and doing things that were not effective at all. And then saying public goods and attaching the word public goods to this scummy thing and getting money for it. And it just like, I talked to Dennison a lot, and Dennison was like, DAOs are dead. It's all over. But he talked about the idea of like even crypto as a buffet. You wouldn't go to a buffet if it smelled like an outhouse. And that's kind of like the problem with crypto right now and DAOs is like, there's a smell to everything.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, even beyond the smell and, perverse incentives and what have you, like your example of the 20 people needing to turn off, I think a big challenge with DAOs as well was that the 20 people that need to turn that knob don't all have the same like level of context on what drivers should be considered and like where do we turn that knob to. And some of them work for the project maybe pretty full time, but some of them maybe kind of we're a founder who's completely absent now and kind of just votes based on vibes. And so that's part of the challenge too, is just like varying commitment levels plus the incentives. It's I think there's DAOs in their initial iteration. Like I would probably do iteration 2 with like a little bit more structure and rigor, which would not be well taken by some, but I think there's a happy medium.
So okay, DAOs are cool. You could have this like, I mean, the world computer has never gone down. If you build an Ethereum smart contract and it just runs algorithmically, it's going to run exactly like that forever. There are some tricks with incentives, and you need to make sure the incentives are set up correctly. But if you write the code and you create the correct incentives, that thing will run forever. DAOs are kind of like this softer layer on top of that, where some things need to be tweaked, some things need some subjectivity, some things need to change over time, some things need to be upgraded, like an upgrade contract, and you don't want one account to do that. That's where like the DAO will be important, or DAOs will be important. The whole like treasury management side of DAOs is where they become perverse and all fucked up, and who knows what will happen there. But beyond DAOs, stablecoins, agentic payments, I don't know what else. You kind of mentioned some of these things. I'm interested of like what you dug into in January before going, nah, not yet. Like what, because there is some cool stuff in crypto, but you're right. Like it's maybe not ready yet, or the product market fit isn't there. We see agent commerce. We see 8004. There's 20,000 different agents that have registered to do jobs, and about 3 people hiring those agents on any given day. Is that kind of something that you dug into?
Yeah, I mean, let me like zoom out for a moment and talk about my motivation for just like, starting to work in crypto 5 years ago, and like kind of why I'm here, because I think that sort of sets the stage for this. But like my entry and sort of and my curiosity around crypto has always been sort of very pragmatic, right? Like in 2020, early 2021, post-COVID, macro stuff is crazy. I've heard about this Bitcoin thing, done some research on it in the past, but hadn't really deeply understood it. And I was actually working as a venture investor at the time. And I realized I did not have a well-informed answer to the question, like, is Bitcoin digital gold, that I kept hearing being floated. And I was like, I should change that. I should learn about this crypto thing and actually form an opinion on it. Because, there's questions about the future of the US dollar and quantitative easing, and is Bitcoin the next thing? And as someone who's just like, A, an investor at the time, and B, very interested in macroeconomics, I was like, I should understand this. I should study it. And so that was kind of my entry into crypto, was coming at it from a macro lens and studying it and trying to understand Bitcoin. Eventually ended up on sort of like directionally, yes, I think Bitcoin, is a good sort of digital gold is a good analogy for that, but that's a conversation for another day. But then I discovered Ethereum and programmable money, and sort of it became clear to me how money could work better for people. Love it. The Ethereum hands. it became clear to me that a structure like this for money and just like money issuance was likely inevitable in a completely digital world in the future. And it just made so much sense. And so that's, all of that and that conviction is what got me, interested. So I started getting, it was the heyday of DAOs. So I started joining DAOs, meeting people, talking to people, and went full-time crypto because I wanted to work on that future, a future that I found inevitable and interesting, but one that I would say was not particularly like ideology driven versus a lot of people who got into crypto at the time. So that's sort of my genesis and interest in crypto at the onset. Back then, stablecoins weren't really a big thing. Like people were kind of using them, in Gitcoin grants rounds, you could contribute in ETH, or you could contribute in USDC or USDT, but they were pretty niche still at the time. And then during my 5 years in crypto, the stablecoin narrative really picked up, and it always made so much sense to me. And it's like, in the long term, I do believe there end up being alternative currencies that are created on chain, and there's all sorts of interesting monetary experimentation that makes money work better for people than it does in the current financial system. I think that does play out on a very long-term time horizon. But in the near term, like bringing today's money on chain just feels inevitable and beneficial in so many ways, and in ways that are not obvious to people today. And like me, practically, I'm not using stablecoins that much in my day-to-day life right now, but I can see a path there. And I do think, kind of coming to crypto and AI, like one path where that makes sense is micropayments. Like the current financial system, very practically, just can't really do transactions for under a penny. And you think about AI agents, doing all sorts of like super, super minuscule tasks. Wow, that's an amazing use case for stablecoins because it just has that functionality. And not just the functionality of some petty transactions, but the functionality of, you could imagine like with programmable, you're scrolling through a web page, and as you scroll, it's like accumulating, like you're paying a balance. There's just so much you can do with it that you can't do in the current system. And so, agents and sort of agentic commerce and all that is still so early that like we're not even really talking about those things at any sophisticated scale yet. We're starting, I think the primitives are starting to be built that will enable those things in the future, and crypto and AI will be a very natural intersection. But for me, as somebody building an AI today, like if I'm going to build something that involves money, I'm honestly probably just going to use like Stripe Link or, something that uses the current financial system, because that's where people are today. And so I think all of this does play out. That was a very long rant, but that's kind of like how I'm thinking about all of this. And so, yeah, back in January, February, as I said, I was kind of making the decision of like, do I go full AI? Do I focus on crypto? I built a couple things, a couple prototypes, kind of like trying to envision for myself, what would a world with, on-chain and agent registration look like? And like, how might all of this play out? And just in building that stuff myself, especially as somebody who was non-technical, I was just like, this is too early to matter, unfortunately. And I don't think that will be the case in a few years' time, but that's how I felt with the prototypes that I spent even just a few weeks building earlier this year.
Few years, huh? You think agent demand will take a few years?
I don't think agent demand will take a few years, but it's like the combination of sort of agents operating in a structure that lends itself to crypto and like the crypto stuff for agents all being there and ready. And now I'm not super well versed on like where all of that sits. I know when I was first building this stuff in January, February, I think ERC 8004, which I think is on-chain registration for agents, had like just come out, and I was like tinkering with that, and I was like, oh man, this is like so early. And so I don't know, like convince me otherwise. I would love to hear like your argument that it's coming really soon and get excited about it, but I'm like not naturally there yet.
I don't know if I have a great argument. I think that like it makes sense, right? It makes sense for me to have like a very generalized agent, and for that agent to have a wallet. And whenever it needs to do a specialized task, going back to, I don't know if we were on camera or off camera when I was talking about one of the major themes of Slop.Computer has been like this balancing the effectiveness and the efficiency, and you get it effective first and then you make it efficient second. I think that like my generalized agent could go generate a movie, but there's another agent out there that's like programmed to generate movies and can do it in a very efficient way, where like maybe I can be somewhat effective at doing it, but I'm not going to be very efficient at doing it. And I think that if I can pay a fraction of a cent to someone who's going to be way more efficient doing it, I think that empowers my agent. And like you said, like agents can't like make a credit card transaction. They can, but the fraction of a cent, the, you know, at light speed, there's a lot there that has to happen that credit cards are not great at. I think that if we make a quick tangent here of something you said there, like I would just use Stripe. I think this is like a very scary thing for crypto, is that like Stripe is being like sort of crypto. Yeah. And they're being sort of crypto and doing all the things that crypto does. And that's what people are going to use. Like they're going to use the thing that, like, there are cypherpunks out there that want to do everything cypherpunk, but besides them, good enough crypto, or this looks kind of like crypto, or it's a stable coin but it's in a database, or like that's where a lot of this is going to go, unless we do something very good at the crypto layer to make it 10x better and 10x easier. And I don't know if I've seen that yet. Stable coins, fraction of a cent, agents hiring other agents. I think that is like exciting to me, but I'm worried about someone like Stripe basically just creating a chilling effect by doing it just as good or better in a centralized way, and people not giving a shit about decentralization.
Do you not imagine though that a player like Stripe doing something like this would do it like on a blockchain? Or are you just saying sort of like you fear that the incentives and sort of structure of the blockchain would not be as kind of open and decentralized like an Ethereum or like other layer one kind of thing? Like Stripe has Tempo, for example, right? And right. Like, you know, we can contemplate the world in which like, you know, that ends up being the thing. And like, what does that look like? What does that mean for Ethereum and beyond? What's your, like, how do you see that playing out, and what is your like core fear there?
I mean, first of all, I'm an idiot, and I am not good at like knowing what happens in the future. But I think that like when most companies tried to make their company blockchain, it just didn't work. Like right. They didn't have 100%. Enough like Microsoft did not want to play on Google chain, and Google doesn't want to play on Microsoft chain. Yeah. But I think if someone like Stripe, like payments, they make a payments chain and they get a ton of partners, specifically credit card companies and other payment processors. And then they say, what is, you know, the blockchain, what is blockchain UX in the future that's amazing that we can't do right now that they can do? And let's do that on our own chain and call it payment chain, and stay off of like the traditional blockchain rails and have their own rails. Like, I think that's very scary. I think that's like,
right. And so your like ultimate fear there is around like ownership, I presume, right? Like, because then that effectively is owned by a very large private company rather than, you know, the more open internet.
Can they shut you off? Like, is it censorship resistant? Right, exactly. Basically,
it comes back to like Ethereum's core principles. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is, and I hope that they build a tech in which they cannot shut you off. But I think that they would like to build a tech where they can shut you off, and that's kind of against the core principles, exactly like you said.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm perhaps a little bit less cynical in that I feel like I know a lot of like great Ethereans that have gone on to work at Stripe, you know, and still hold a lot of those values.
And Tempo's dope.
My hope, you know, I think
they're
like
very smart people.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, there's Stripe, but there's also other companies that could do this. But I do think with Stripe in particular, like if anyone's going to have the people are gonna kind of get it and get some of that in terms of like larger companies, I think they're the one.
We're counting on.
I'm not a Stripe shill. I'm not a
Giorgio
anyway, but I'm just maybe I'm just an eternal optimist. But
yes, I hope so. We'll see. I hope that we see a huge explosion of agentic commerce where people are figuring out how to do things. Like my $1 audit is like the example of this. I tried to make it the example of this. I think also like AI is the new UI, and I'm constantly like building wallets in which you just express your intent to the wallet, and the wallet's like, okay, click this button. And then when you click that button, you don't get a giant wall of fucking call data. You get like a human readable, you know, your AI, your local AI says this is a swap that swaps this to that. Your clear signing thing says the minimum you can get back is this. Like, it's very clear to a human what's going to happen there, and you click go. Like, that's exciting. I think that like, I hope that this agentic commerce thing takes off in the right way, where it's not controlled and censored, and you can hire an agent to do a whole number of things, and it's like cheaper than you can imagine. That was the whole idea of like $1 audit is like doesn't even make sense. It's like I said it's a serious audit at an unserious price.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible at knowing what will happen in the future.
Agreed. We all are. That's why we're
Okay, let's finish it out with just like what does your sloperation look like on a day-to-day? Oh, I'm getting very choppy. This happens sometimes. On a day-to-day, like when you are building something, what does your day-to-day building look like? Claude Code, Codex, I don't know, any tricks? What's your superpower trick with AI? Hit us.
I'll actually tell you a bit of a story that's kind of interesting because I told you we ran that meetup, right? We ran that 750 person, that big meetup. And at that meetup, we did a bunch of demos. And the thing that I demoed at that meetup was my setup in April 2026 as a non-technical person. I said, here are the 3 tools that I use to make Claude Code work for me as a non-technical person. And I was using an interface that I was religious about called Vibe Kanban. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Open source, great product. And it effectively, yeah, you can actually probably look it up. I think the team actually isn't actively working on it anymore, but it still exists. It was basically almost like an early preview of what the Claude and Codex desktop apps looks like now, where I, as a non-technical person, was like getting fed up using the CLI and trying all these different IDEs and being like, I don't exactly like this. These interfaces don't feel intuitive to me. So Vibe Kanban was kind of like, oh, it's like almost like ChatGPT, but I can use Claude Code, and this is amazing. So I was using that, and then a month later, Claude and Codex came out with their fantastic desktop apps, and my like presentation I had done about how I use AI as a non-technical person was completely obsolete. So all that to say, like all of this is changing so fast, and how I work is changing very fast. I only introduced Codex probably a month or so ago, but I'm finding I'm often using it as my primary driver now. So I kind of hop between Claude and Codex, depending on where my limits are sitting. But there are certain sort of like quality of life features in the Codex desktop app that I like a lot in particular. But then there's also certain things I like in Claude. So I use them like, probably 60-40 Codex Claude these days. I'm using pretty much entirely the desktop app. That tends to serve my needs these days. So I'm not really going back into IDEs or CLI. I am heavily using my Obsidian-based second brain, which is basically I have one for work and one for personal. And they're just folder structures on my computer that contain, markdown files, PDFs, everything on context on my life and my work that is relevant. So both Claude and Codex read from those and write to those on a daily basis. And I also have a Hermes agent, a couple of Hermes agents, one that sits in my DMs with my co-founder and logs all of our conversations and actually uploads them into our second brain. So our second brain always has like everything we're talking about on Signal day in and day out, which is huge. And then, I have a Hermes agent that lives in Signal that I use on the personal side for a variety of personal automations. And that's kind of the TLDR on like what it looks like day to day.
That's good. I feel like that's the Hermes agent. I feel like was probably the weirdest thing. Sorry, I'm all choppy. This happens every once in a while. I want to have all this weird stuff happening. Hopefully the audio is still fine. The Hermes agent, I feel like was the weirdest thing. Wait, go ahead. Sorry, is it too choppy? Can you hear me?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, would you say the Hermes agent is like the most like kind of weird edge? It's like kind of like a listening agent is what it sounds like. And you're like you're using an agent to like be in the chat as an entity and then feeding that information into your second brain. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, that's 100% right. On the work side, that's it. That's kind of its main task because it just lives in the chat and feeds it into second brain. Occasionally it will like chime in on stuff, and we have a couple automations we run on it where it gives us kind of like an overview of, the day and things that have changed in the vault, but it's mostly most of the value comes from it just like being in our DMs. And then the Hermes agents that I have on the personal side is more like cron jobs and stuff that it just like texts me and reminds me to like do this thing or update that thing. And that one's just me and it in a DM. So I'm interacting with it more like one-on-one.
Dope. What's the next thing? What do you wish you had that you don't? Is it like frontier agents or some kind of harness that does something? Like when you extrapolate out that like mind of AI-ifying the shit out of something, what's next, do you think?
Honestly, a lot of it is just like it's like better interfaces still. Like I find some of the automations in Claude and Codex like a little bit clunky when I run stuff on like a daily basis there. Like I find like I really like the text-based like Hermes or OpenClaw in Signal or WhatsApp just for like stuff that I want to like see and get notifications on my phone. But then I like using Claude and Codex in desktop for like, you know, sort of seeing a full thread and seeing like all of the context in a way that I wouldn't want to read on my phone. And how do you like bridge those two worlds? Because I feel like my Hermes agents and my Claude and Codex are like a little bit too separate for my liking. So honestly, my biggest wish list for AI stuff is just like better UX for that type of thing and creativity on that front. And I mean, you know, Anthropic and OpenAI have made absolute strides, you know, in the last few months. And I imagine it won't look the same as it does in a few months' time. Right. But yeah,
the one thing we know for sure is it's going to move fast and it's going to continue to get weird.
Yeah.
Cool. Amazing. Okay. Annika, thank you so much. Good luck with Northbound and bringing small to medium businesses into the AI world. It seems like a great place to be operating. I think you'll be successful.
Awesome. Thank you, Austin. This was so much fun. Great jamming as always.
Yeah. All right. See you. Thank you. Yeah.